Hi, this is Kimberly Reuter, business advisor and supply chain expert, and welcome to my podcast, The Morning Mood. Today, we're going to talk about leadership. A few months ago, a couple months ago, I started a blog, almost said podcast, blog about leadership. And it was based on my three leadership values. I didn't quite finish the blog series, so I'm going to reintroduce it here in the podcast and then finish it here on the podcast. And these leadership values I have learned over my 3 decades of experience. And I want to reiterate again for young leaders out there, people just starting their professional careers, or even anybody at any level in their career. You have to learn to be a good leader. You need to work with mentors. You need to have good examples. People aren't born with all the leadership skills. I believe some people are born with natural leadership abilities, but you still have to learn to be a leader. And of course, me being me, I had to learn the hard way. I'm a doer. I learn by doing, which means I learn by fucking it up, as I've said many times before. So that I just want to reiterate for everyone out there in that if you don't have it nailed yet, don't worry. Just go learn some new skills. Okay. So leadership values. So I have learned these over the lifespan, as I mentioned, 30 years. And that has been from a young customs brokerage manager at 27, running my own brokerage office in Baltimore. And while I was in Baltimore, I was responsible for one of the biggest clients for the company, Michelin Tire. I grew that business. I can't remember how much I grew that business, but I grew that business a ton because I was young and ambitious, and it was just me and I had an employee, an import agent who worked for me who helped with the imports, and it was a wild time. But very young leader, didn't know how a whole lot about leading, but what I have always known how to do is get shit done. So I was getting shit done in Baltimore at 27, or excuse me, 28, and so from that young leader, I have progressed from being a manager to a brokerage manager to a division manager to being a product manager to being a director to being a CEO to being a vice president to every level of leadership within organizations. And I've learned along the way. And the leadership skills I used when I was a young blood running brokerage and trucks are different than the skills that I use now. Sometimes I still have to whip out those old skills, but that happens every now and then. But anyway, so I have done everything from running a brokerage operations to advising the C-suite at the corporate jet. And by the way, the corporate jet is everything that it's made out to be. Every rap video you have ever watched where the corporate jet, yes, it is the bomb. If you can fly corporate, do it, or fly private. Unfortunately, my opportunity came and went when I left Nordstrom. So, but it is fantastic. So, what does it take to be a great leader? What are the principles, the values, the foundation of being a great leader? And what are the things that I've seen in great leaders? They are these three things. There is no. Now, I've already written a blog about this experience. I'm going to do a podcast specifically about it. But in summary, I went from being a compliance person who was focused on the regulations and what the rules said to someone who had to create solutions for problems we didn't even know we had. Like we were solving problems for the future. And that takes a different level, a different mindset, and a different type of leadership. So, number one is there is no, and you're going to hear the fantastic story about how I learned that lesson. And it hurt a little bit, but I'm glad I did it. The other one is an open mind. And this is sometimes couched under, and you'll hear me talk about the higher you go, the less you know. An open mind is about not knowing, being curious, asking for help, being open to other people's ideas and input. That is what an open mind is about. And I call this out very specifically because I have seen closed-minded leaders and I have seen open-minded leaders. And I can tell you from being both of those type of leaders and also working for both of those type of leaders that the open-minded leader is much easier to be. I can't tell you how much easier it is to be open-minded. We're going to get into this. Why it is so much easier for you to be open-minded. So, from a leadership perspective, it's easier to be open minded. It encourages your people because they feel heard. You're hearing their voice. Closed minded leaders, when I see them, know everything. They don't want to hear jack shit from anybody unless it is, yes, you are the most fabulous person I've ever met in my life. That's all they want to hear. And that is a closed minded leader. You will also see that closed minded leaders stall. They reach a point, that's it, that's as far as they're gonna go, and they don't diversify. They stay in a vertical, that's where they stick, and that's it. So that's a closed-minded leader. They don't wanna hear anything from anybody, they're not interested in growing. So open mind versus closed mind is extremely important, and it is one of my 3 core values for leadership, and I have worked for both. The open-minded leader, was much happier. I felt heard. I felt like I contributed. I felt like I had value. The closed-minded leaders I've worked for, I hated them. I just straight up fucking hated them. They don't wanna hear anything. They don't wanna talk to you. They just wanna dictate. And no, can't stand them. I cannot work for a minded leader. Plenty of people out there can. Other closed-minded people get together, and that's what happens. But anyway, so that's number 2. We'll get into that. Number 3, and this is gonna shock you. Get ready. It is kindness, also known as empathy. And so, what happens when you show kindness and empathy is that you bring people together. They want to work with you, not for you. And this, let me just, this, we bring up a very good point right here. And I listen for this all the time when I talk to people. And I want you to start listening to it too, because it is one word that will tell you everything about how a person feels about leadership. Okay. And that is when you hear someone talk about their team. If they say they work for me versus they work with me, one word difference, for versus with. If you were talking to someone who says they work for me, I can almost guarantee you they don't use any of these 3 principles. None. They might tell you, "Oh, yes, I do, I do." It's a bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. Look at their actions. People work with you. I don't care who you are, how high you are, what your position is, how much money you make, what kind of car you drive, how big your fucking house is. They work with you. This also applies to me personally in my personal life, right? I work with people. I work with my contractors. I work with my gardener. I work with my mechanics. They don't work for me. I work with those people. So kindness, empathy. And the other thing is that when you shift from they work for me versus they work with me, you become a team. You're empathetic to their position. It was interesting when I moved back here to Virginia. I think I mentioned I'm from Virginia, from the tidewater marshes of the Chesapeake Bay. I ventured out into the big cities to work and make some money. And I was in Seattle for about 15 years doing just that. And I came back to Virginia. And really interesting thing happened when I moved back to Virginia. One of the reasons I moved back was because I was just tired of big city life. I was tired of the churn. I wanted to go back and be able to be a part of a community, be a part of something smaller. And so I moved back to the area which I came from, but to a smaller, more rural area because where I came from is all grown up now and big and fancy and they have lots of stoplights. And so I needed to go somewhere with no stoplights. It's our rule. More than one stoplight, we got a problem. I also live on a dirt road, which fascinates the shit out of my PR team in New York. I also hang out my clothes, especially my bed sheets in the summer, because that is a beautiful thing. But anyway, so back to leadership and kindness and the story I want to tell you. So when I moved back here to rural Virginia, There's a lot of kindness in the country. So I don't know if anybody out here is from the country, has lived in the country, grew up in the country. I find country life to be very kind. I think a lot of people here struggle. They work very hard and they're empathetic. They understand that other people are also working hard and trying to be empathetic. Whereas in a city, I feel like people kind of get in their own little bubble and they don't really care what's going on. I also compare it to the clipboard versus the chainsaw, right? Any country person knows that the man who shows up with the chainsaw is much more valuable than the man who shows up with the clipboard. And that's a reference to hurricane country. If you live in hurricane country, you know exactly what that means. So I moved back to the country. I'm from here, so I knew how to blend in. I knew what it was about to live here. I knew what I wanted about moving back here. And so I moved back. Now I am an outsider because I've been gone for a while. So I have to ease myself back into the community. They're closed about what we call outsiders. Um, but I have this old truck named Daisy. She's a 1987 square body Chevy. If you any old car guys out there, women out there, she's state orange. She's from the state of Washington, and I bought her back to Virginia with me. And that truck paved the way for me across this country town. Any trouble, I just had to show up in Daisy, and they're like, "Oh, come on in and bring your truck." So I move back, and I go, and I need to find a mechanic, and I find a great old school mechanic, Tom, and Tom is having no bullshit from nobody. So I rock up in there. I know that I need to be nice and kind. I can't be demanding. They're not going to deal with any city bullshit. And so I go and I meet Tom, and Tom does some inspections for me. He ends up becoming my mechanic, and I end up getting to know Tom very well. Became a very good friend. Sorry, guys. Tom passed away a couple years ago, so I still get pretty choked up when I talk about him, because he became such a good friend. But moving back to the country and getting to know Tom and Tom becoming my mechanic, which there's a funny story in there too about how Tom became my mechanic because he didn't want to be my mechanic because he thought I was one of those rude city people when I first came back. But Daisy convinced him to be my mechanic because he could not turn down a square body. It's just not, he wasn't going to be able to do that. So anyway, so Tom and I get to know each other. We spend a lot of time because I have this old truck that needs a lot of work. And so I spend a lot of time at the mechanic office, talking to Tom. And one of the things that he starts to bring up is that the people that visit that are not from the country and how demanding they are and entitled and how they show up in his shop and they're like, I need this and I need that. And I'm here for the weekend and I want it done on Monday when I leave. And all of this craziness that happens and how it completely made Tom not work with them. Tom would raise his prices, be unavailable, do anything not to help that person. If they showed up in his shop and said, "You need to do this, you need to do that. I want this, I want that." And he didn't care what kind of car they drove. He didn't care who they were. He didn't care how much money they were or had. He didn't care who they thought they were. He did gave 0 shits about any of this. Tom had been a mechanic since he was like 10. I'm not shitting you. He started out helping out working on the farm equipment. All right. So the guy had seen just about everything. He was also secretly a very fine mechanic for some very high end antique car collectors. But we didn't talk about that very much. He was just good old Tom. And so Tom would turn them out. Literally, I saw him say, "Please leave. I can't help you, sir." Because these people were not kind. And when you take that example and you apply it to the workplace, and when you're a dick and you are a cunt and you walk around telling everybody, I want to be gender neutral here. Sorry if the C word is more offensive than the D word, but I don't want to offend gender equal opportunity here. So when you're like that, people shut down. They do not want to work with you. They do not go the extra mile. They don't want to help. They do not want to help you. They will do what you demand. They will meet your requirements, bare minimum. They will show up, but they won't help. They won't put in the ever extra effort. They won't do anything like that for you. Kindness goes such a long way in everything. And again, a lesson I had to learn the hard way, in that running around beating people over the head with a stick, while effective, was a short-term solution, because you can only beat somebody so many times before they just shut down. Kindness is the other part of leadership. It is absolutely essential for helping people grow, helping your company grow, and helping yourself grow. So those are the 3 that I wanted to share with you guys today. And I know you probably didn't think that's what they were gonna be. You probably thought they were gonna be like some stupid shit corporate jargon crap that you hear all the time, but that isn't really what it's about. And these are also the values, traits, leadership, principles. These aren't really principles. These are really values. But these are the values and traits that I have seen in great leaders. They're the traits that I aspire to develop as a leader. I'm still working on it, and I had to learn every one of them. And you're gonna hear the lesson and the story about how I learned every single one of these. And I hope that you learned something from it too, and that you can be massively successful and not have to go through all of the learning pains I had and spend all that time in the mud versus on the horse. So thank you. I appreciate you being here. We are coming up on 3-4 weeks of podcasting. The audience is growing. I appreciate you. Please give a shout out, share the podcast if it's resonating with you, and thank you for being here. And we'll talk tomorrow.